tiptoed into the lounge. I nearly jumped out of my skin when I heard a voice. "You're gonna be in so much trouble." It was my annoying older sister Natalia sitting in a corner and recording a makeup tutorial. "Listen, you can't tell Aunt I came so late. She'll make me do the dishes and laundry for a month. I might keep your secret if you do my math homework for the rest of the school year." Just then, my eyes fell on the mound of honey cakes on the table and my stomach growled. "Don't even think about touching these. Aunt wants to sell them at the farmer's market. We came to live with our miserable Aunt Ursula after our parents passed away in an accident a few years ago, and she treated us like we were her servants. I was really hungry, so I just grabbed one and popped the whole thing into my mouth. Just then, my aunt suddenly showed up and yelled, "That's it! I'm sick of breaking my back looking after you girls. I'm sending you off to foster care." We looked at her in horror. Going to foster care meant we'd be sent off to different families. As Aunt stormed off and we heard her making a call, I got a flying shoe on my head. Ow! Oh, I forgot to tell you about my third sister, Tanya. The sleepyhead had been snoring in front of the fireplace, but she was wide awake now and glaring at me. "This is all your fault, Marina. Go tell her you're sorry. I'm not living away from you guys." Natalia and I ran to hug her, and I promised I'd make everything okay. Just then, we heard loud knocking on the door. Aunt came waddling out to open it, and she let out a loud gasp. Standing in the doorway was a huge man with a beard. His voice boomed in the small room. "Did you really think you could send them off and keep taking the money I give you for their care and I wouldn't even know? Girls, pack your things. You're coming with me." "Hi, my name is Marina, and I'm from Russia." My life turned around when Mom's eccentric brother, who I never even knew existed, took away me and my sisters to live in his old mansion. But it gets even crazier from here. Before I continue, click like and subscribe. The next few weeks living with Uncle Ivan was like a dream. He got all three of us into the best school in town right away. A few days later at dinner, while Natalia and I were busy arguing over something, Tanya suddenly said, Guys, is Uncle Ivan okay?" We looked at him and saw that he sat slumped in his chair. "Oh, no, no, no." Natalia poked him, but there was no response. I bent down to check his pupils, and just then he yelled, "Do svidaniya!" We all screamed and nearly fell back in shock. He glared at us. "Can't a man take a nap in his own house?" Uncle Ivan startled us again by suddenly banging his goblet on the table. "I've just decided something. I want to give you $1 million. For a few seconds, we stared at him with our mouths open, and then we started hugging each other in delight. "To one of you." We froze in our spots. "Wait, what?" "Well, if it's only one of us, of course it should be me. I'm the oldest, and I'm running a business already. You know, my beauty blog." "Your business is just Dumbos watching another Dumbo putting on makeup. I'm going to be a big shot singer one day, so I'll need that money for my album." "Guys, come on, $1 million is a lot of money. We can share it." But the other two weren't even listening to me. "How dare you call me a Dumbo, you little bug? I'm 11 and I can kick your butt." And before I knew it, they were attacking one another while I was trying to break it up. Uncle got up and looked at us with sad eyes. "I will make my decision in 3 days." And with that, he walked off. The next morning, when I peeked into Natalia and Tanya's rooms and didn't find them there, I knew exactly where they'd be. And sure enough, I found them standing outside Uncle's bedroom with breakfast trays loaded with his favorite foods. "Seriously, guys, we're family. I swear if I find the money, I'll happily split it with you two." "Well, I wouldn't do that for you." "Yeah, me neither. It's gonna be all mine." And with that, Tanya knocked on the door loudly, but there was no reply. We opened the door, and to our surprise, the bed was perfectly made and the room was empty. Just then, I caught sight of a note on his pillow and ran forward to pick it up. A fat lady with no eyebrows sitting in a frame, smiling strangely at the world. Everyone knows her name. P.S. I had to go somewhere. What on earth is he talking about? The woman he's describing sounds like Aunt Ursula. I'm not going back to her, not even for $1 million. Later that night, when I was in bed, I was still thinking about the strange poem when I suddenly sat up straight. Of course that's what Uncle meant. I quickly put on my nightgown and rushed downstairs. I crept quietly into Uncle's study and switched on my phone's flashlight. I knew I'd seen it here, the Mona Lisa hanging on the wall. I stared at the painting for a while, wondering what I was supposed to do now. Then I took it off the wall and flipped it over. I gasped. Taped to one corner was a small bronze key. I couldn't wait to tell the others. And then suddenly, I felt a hand around my ankle. Ah! I jumped back in fright and fell on the floor, and then someone popped up from behind the couch. "Oh, hi, Marina. I thought it was Natalia bringing me food." Oh my God, how could it possibly be? It was Petrov, the hockey team captain at my old school and my biggest crush. What on earth are you doing here? Just then the door burst open and she walked in with a tray of snacks. She looked shocked to see me, then quickly smiled. "Oh, I see you've met my boyfriend. We were really missing each other, so he decided to pay me a visit." I couldn't believe my own sister would do this to me. She knew how much I liked him, and she'd been dating him behind my back. Just then, Tanya came running in, saying she'd heard my screams. She didn't even look surprised to see Petrov. "You knew he was here too?" "Yeah, I saw Natalia sneaking him in a few nights ago." "Petrov, it's really uncool to eat someone's chocolates without asking, man." Petrov stared at her like she was crazy. "What are you talking about? I didn't eat your stuff." "Well, one of you is lying then because they were in the fridge this morning. Who ate them, ghosts?" Just then, the study door behind us slammed shut and we all turned around startled. And then we heard a key turn in the lock. I ran towards the door and pulled the handle, but it wouldn't budge. Who could possibly have locked us inside? Petrov started banging on the door and screaming like a maniac. "Help! This house is haunted! I don't want to die here!" "Jeez, Petrov, you're gonna wake up all the ghosts." He looked even more horrified, and Natalia kicked Tanya before taking him aside and calming him down. Just seeing the two of them sitting so close made my blood boil. And now we were just stuck here and would have to wait for Uncle to let us out. As we all sat there sulking quietly, Natalia suggested that we could play a game to pass the time. "Oh, I have a great game in mind. It's called Reflection." I picked the antique mirror from Uncle's desk and shoved it in her face. "Mirror, mirror in my hands, who's the worst sister in all the lands?" "OMG, loser, get over it." Petrov looked really confused and asked what was going on. Natalia just said, "Oh, nothing." And then she grabbed him by the collar and started kissing him in front of me. "Oh, my eyes, my eyes!" Tanya ran off to the other end of the room and refused to come back. She snuggled into a big armchair, and after a few minutes we could hear her loud snoring. Natalia opened a packet of crisps for herself and Petrov and glared at me. "Don't even think about it. Also, why were you snooping around at night?" "As if I'd tell you." When Petrov asked us what we were fighting about, Natalia spilled out everything about how Uncle was leaving one of us $1 million. "If you're keeping any secrets from me, Marina, I'll find out. Come on, babe, I'm so tired." And with that, she took Petrov's hands and they both snuggled onto the couch. I put my fingers in my ears to stop hearing their kissing and giggling sounds. This was just the worst night ever. Finally, after ages, it seemed like they'd fallen asleep. I was still wide awake and my stomach rumbled loudly. A few minutes later, someone shook me by the shoulder. I turned around to see it was Petrov, and he'd brought me some food. We stayed up for hours talking, and I was having the best time. "You know something, Marina? I think you're the smartest, and you'll win the money." His face was really close to mine, and he was leaning in to kiss me. Just then, we heard Natalia stir, and he quickly ran off to her. A little while later, I crawled over to the Mona Lisa painting on the floor and found a key on the back. I clutched it tight and fell asleep. I woke up the next morning, and to my shock, the door was unlocked and wide open. I woke the others up, and everyone was so excited we were free. Just as I was walking out, I heard Natalia say, "Hey, why is this painting on the floor?" "Oh, I saw Marina take it off last night. There was something behind it." And before I knew it, Natalia had jumped across the room and pinned me to the ground. "Tell me what you found, you witch!" I tried to push her off me, but she was crazy strong. As we wrestled on the floor, the key slipped out of my hands and Tanya ran to pick it up. "Both of you, shut up!" As we sat panting and staring daggers at one another, Tanya said that there was something written on the key. "Together in Paris." We had no idea what that was about and decided we'd come back from school and figure it out together. I went to Uncle's room and slipped the key into a drawer. During the first recess, I snuck out of the school and went back home as fast as I could. I crept into Uncle's room and headed straight for the drawer, to find it empty. What? Just then, I saw the curtain move a little. I crept up to it slowly and pulled it back to see Petrov behind it. "What are you doing here, and where's my key?" I saw you with it, and I just wanted to help solve the mystery for you. You're so smart. I really wanted you to think I'm smart too." He suddenly took my hand and pulled me close. "I like you, Marina, a lot. Let's figure this thing out and get out of here with the $1 million. We could go anywhere, just you and me." Just as he was about to pull me in for a kiss, I pushed him away. "Seriously? You were just making out with my sister this morning. You're such a cheater, and I'm no idiot. Give me the key, Petrov, now! Suddenly, Petrov pushed me aside and made a dash towards the door. He bumped into a small table and knocked everything over. I jumped towards him and managed to tackle him to the ground. The small key flew out of his hand and went skidding across the floor and landed at Natalia's feet. She looked livid. Oh, so you were going to just take my money and run off with my sister? He crawled up to her on his knees. Don't be silly, babe. I didn't mean a word of that. I was just doing this for the two of us. You mean the three of us? Tanya and I stared at her in shock. Except Petrov, who just looked stupidly confused. It's not some riddle, idiot. I'm pregnant and you're going to be a daddy. He stared up at her in horror for a second, then ran out of the room screaming. We heard the huge main door slam shut. I ran to Natalia and hugged her. I had no idea. Petrov's such a jerk. But don't worry, we will be really good aunts and She pushed me off. Ew, I'm not dumb enough to get pregnant. That was just to get rid of him. Just then, Tanya, who was picking up the things Petrov had knocked over, suddenly screamed, "Look, girls, look what this says!" She was holding a beautiful little music box in her hands and there was a small carving on the lid, "Together in Paris." I placed the box on the table and we all gathered around as I turned the key. The lid slowly opened and we gasped in delight as we saw two figurines dancing to the tinkly music. There was a tiny compartment underneath and a small note tucked away, 271287. For a moment we just stared at the paper when Natalia suddenly gasped. These numbers! This is Mom's birthday! She was right! But what could Uncle possibly mean by this? I have no idea, girls, but Uncle said we only had 3 days, so we have to put our heads together and figure it out soon. Later that night, as I tossed around in bed, I suddenly heard a loud thump from downstairs. I froze for a minute, then quickly crept out of bed and tiptoed down with a baseball bat. I couldn't see anyone around, and just as I was about to turn away, something on the floor caught my eye. Muddy shoe prints. We definitely had an intruder in the house. I followed the shoe prints down the corridors that led to the eastern wing of the house. I'd never been here before. Suddenly they faded away, and I looked up to see a door at the end of the hall. Holding my breath, I slowly opened it. There was no one inside, but it was the oddest room I'd ever seen. It seemed like a museum of forgotten things, and there were hundreds of clocks on the walls of all shapes and sizes, ticking away and all telling the wrong time. And in one corner was a shiny bronze safe. The minute I saw it, I had a light bulb moment. Of course that's what the numbers were. The combination to a safe. With trembling hands, I entered the numbers and heard a small click. I opened it and squealed when I saw what was inside. Stacks of money. It definitely looked like $1 million. Were you going to keep this for yourself? I turned around to see Natalia and Tanya standing behind me. Of course not. How could you even think that? Come, let's split it right now. There's plenty for us all. Just then, the door burst open and we turned around to see Uncle Ivan beaming in the doorway. Uncle, you're back! I was here all along. Who do you think locked you up when you girls were being so noisy? I just wanted to see how you would play my game. Marina, you really know what family is all about. Good girl. You get to keep all the money. The other two looked horrified. I turned to Uncle and smiled. Thank you, Uncle, but I couldn't. It'll make me happier to share it with my sisters. I knew you wouldn't. Now only time will tell if your sisters deserve their share. Yes, we deserve it. We'll prove it. We'll be so good to each other. I laughed and put my arms through theirs. Let's divide it and go shopping tomorrow, shall we?